So if your doctor has mentioned knee replacement surgery, then this video is for you. And before I say anything else, let me be very clear. I'm not here to tell you surgery is wrong. I'm not here to give you medical advice. And I'm definitely not here to pretend that a badly damaged knee can always be fixed with a few stretches, a positive attitude, and a YouTube video. But I do think there is a very important question you should ask before making an irreversible decision. And that question is, what have I seriously tried before surgery? Because once someone cuts out and replaces half your knee, there's no coming back from that. Now, that may still be the right decision for some people, but for me, after decades of knee problems, old injuries, ACL reconstruction, multiple arthroscopies, arthritis pain, and being told a knee replacement is the only option, I wanted to know what else I could do first. So in this video, I'm going to walk through the knee replacement alternatives I personally did to avoid surgery so far. Now, some of these are obvious, some are boring but important, and one of them is something that people completely overlook. Then later in the video, I'll also explain why I started looking into frequency therapy as part of my own knee pain plan. So if you've got bad knees, old injuries, arthritis pain, or you've been told surgery might be coming, stay with me, because it's not about blindly avoiding surgery. It's about making sure you've asked the right questions before you let someone rip out half your knee. Knee replacement usually gets suggested when the pain, arthritis, cartilage damage, stiffness, or loss of mobility has become serious enough that your daily life is being affected. And if you're at that stage, you probably already know it's not just a bit of knee pain. It's the stairs, it's getting out of the chair, it's walking shorter and shorter distances, it's waking up during the night because your knee's throbbing, and it's thinking twice before going somewhere because it's too far to walk. And after a while, you feel like your life is shrinking. That's when surgery conversation starts to feel more inevitable. You start thinking, maybe it's just old age. Maybe I've run out of options. Maybe this is just what happens after years of wear and tear. And look, sometimes knee replacement may be the right answer. But here's the part I think people need to be honest about. Knee replacement surgery is also very profitable. Does that mean every surgeon is bad? Not necessarily. But is there a financial incentive for surgery to be part of the conversation? So I think it's completely fair to ask a few more questions, like, have I tried serious alternatives first? Have I had a second opinion? Is surgery truly the only option, or is it simply the next standard step in the system? And that is the reframe I want you to hold for the rest of this video. Not how do I avoid surgery no matter what, but what can I do before surgery becomes the only option? Because the first thing I ask is whether you have really tried the basics properly. And I don't just mean for 3 days, dipping your toe in. A lot of people say I've tried everything, and I get it. When you're in pain, it feels like you've tried everything because you're tired, you're frustrated, and you want the pain gone yesterday. But often when you break it down, everything means a few painkillers, a few stretches, maybe 1 or 2 physio visits, resting the knee, hoping it settles, and then getting frustrated when it flares up again. Now, that's not really trying everything. That's dipping your toe in and hoping one of them magically fixes shit. The better question is, have you tried a structured plan? Have you strengthened the muscles around the knees? Have you activated the muscles that should be protecting the knee? Have you worked on inflammation? Have you reduced load going through the joint? Have you looked at pain relief options? And have you given it enough time to know whether it actually works? Because with old injured knees, there's usually not one single magic switch. It's normally a stack of things. Some things make knees worse, some things take pressure off it. And the result often comes from stacking enough helpful things together. That's where physio, strength, alignment, and especially glute activation come in. And this is one of the most important sections of the entire video. When people think about bad knees, they usually only think about the knee. But the knee is not working by itself. It's caught between the foot, the ankle, the hips, the glutes, the core, and the way your whole body moves. And one of the biggest things I think people miss is the glutes. A lot of people have A weak or underactive glute. Now, when I say glutes, I don't just mean the main butt muscle, the glute muscle, the gluteus maximus, but it's the side ones, the gluteus medius and minimus, those smaller side hip muscles that help stabilize the pelvis, control the hip, and stop everything collapsing inward when you walk, squat, climb stairs, or get up from a chair. Now, this matters because if those muscles are not doing their job, the knee often cops the punishment. The knee can start dealing with the pressure, twisting, collapsing inward, poor tracking, and movement patterns that should have been controlled higher up around the hip. So before you only think, I've got bad knees, is it worth asking, are my glutes actually firing properly? Are my hips helping support the movement? Am I walking, standing, and squatting in a way that dumps pressure into my knee? Am I using my quads and knees to do a job my glutes should be helping with? Now, glute activation is one big thing, but it's not the only one. You still need strength control through the entire lower body. All muscles matter because they all help with balance, stability, alignment, reducing unnecessary stress throughout the knee joint. And this is where I would be careful with random YouTube exercises, because if your knee is already damaged or arthritic, the wrong exercise can absolutely flare it up. Some movement helps, some movement makes it worse. And I've learned that the hard way. So this is where a good physio trainer or movement specialist can be useful. Not just someone who gives you the generic exercises, but someone who actually looks at how you move, whether your glutes are switching on, whether your hips are doing their job, and whether your knee is tracking properly. Because if your glutes are asleep and your alignment is poor, your knee will probably be taking the pressure it was never supposed to handle on its own. And once you understand that, the next big question becomes, what else is adding pressure to the joint? That's what brings us to weight and inflammation and joint load. Now, this part can be uncomfortable, but it needs to be said properly. Every extra kilo of body weight adds more pressure through the knees. Now, that's not about shame. It's just mechanics. If your knee is already irritated, inflamed, arthritic, or damaged, the extra load can make every step harder and more painful. But I don't think this conversation should only be about weight, because inflammation matters too. For some people, food choices, as you say, insulin resistance, swelling, blood sugar problems, and chronic inflammation may all feed into how painful the body feels. That was a big part of my own journey when I went through the low-carb, keto, carnivore, fasting and reversing metabolic issues phase. And when I changed how I ate, it was not only thinking about weight, it was thinking about inflammation, energy, the pain, and whether my body was constantly fighting itself. Now, I'm not saying food magically rebuilds a destroyed knee. That would be ridiculous. But I am saying that your whole body environment matters. If your body is inflamed, your knees may feel worse. If your metabolic health is a mess, your recovery will be worse. If your weight is higher than it needs to be, the joint may be under more pressure. So before I let someone replace part of my knee, I want to ask, can I reduce the load? Can I reduce the inflammation? Can I give my body a better chance to heal itself? But the tricky bit is, when your knees hurt, you often stop moving, and stopping completely can create a new problem. So next, let's talk about low-impact movement instead of thrashing your joints. When your knee hurts, it's tempting to stop moving completely. If you stop for too long, the knee gets weaker and stiffer. At the same time, smashing yourself with high-impact exercise is not the answer either. So the aim is simple: move enough to keep function, but not so much that you create a flare-up. That might mean walking with tolerance, cycling, swimming, water exercise, or controlled strengthening. Nothing heroic, just consistent movement that your knee can recover from. And while you're rebuilding that function, there are a few support tools people look at. You've got braces, insoles, walking aids, things like that. Now, they can help some people, and I'm not going to really make a big deal out of this section because I personally haven't gone down that road. The only time I used a cane was when I had an injury and I genuinely needed it. For me, I'd rather focus on the alignment, the glutes and strength and so forth. But if that stuff works for you, then obviously it's got a place. But don't mistake support for a full solution. Another category people often get offered is pain relief creams, anti-inflammatories, steroid injections, and other injections. Now, that is something to discuss with a qualified professional. Personally, I avoid pharmaceutical options wherever I can. My trust in the medical profession and pharmaceutical profession is at an all-time low because of recent events, and I'll leave that there. And my bigger concern is this: if something only blocks the pain, but if you keep moving badly, loading the joint badly, ignoring inflammation and not fixing the problem, or are you just turning down the alarm? For me, I wanted to look at what could help my body function better. That leads to the next question: regenerative medicine and expensive promises. When people search for knee replacement alternatives, they often find stem cells, PRP, hyaluronic acid, cartilage regeneration, and other injection-style treatments. Now, some may help some people, some are expensive, some are debated, and some are absolutely marketed harder than the evidence actually supports. In other words, it probably doesn't work. My view is simple. Before I spend big money chasing regeneration, I want to ask whether I've given my body the chance to repair and recover naturally. I've addressed inflammation, movement, strength, nutrition, sleep, and recovery. And if I'm looking at a treatment, I want to ask what evidence supports it for my exact knee problem. What are the risks? What does it cost? Am I still likely to need surgery later? Because hope is powerful, but expensive hope without clarity can become a trap. And that's why I started looking more seriously at home therapy devices. This is where things changed for me. For years, I'd looked at the obvious stuff: movement, diet, inflammation, strength, and trying to manage old injuries. But I hadn't properly looked at home therapy devices, things I could use consistently at home, not just when I was desperate. This is what led me towards frequency therapy, including PEMF and terahertz technology. I was not looking for a miracle. I was looking for something practical, something that could help calm things down, something that could support circulation, recovery, stiffness, and comfort, something I could use regularly while I worked on the bigger picture: alignment, glute activation, inflammation, movement, and strength. That's what led me to the OliLife Therapy 90, and for me, this made more sense than only waiting until things got bad enough to cut me open. And again, I'm not calling it a knee replacement cure, but I do think home therapy is one of the most overlooked categories when people are looking at what to try before knee surgery. Because if you can do something daily that helps the knee feel calmer, move better, and recover better, that can change how you approach the whole problem. So before knee replacement, my personal filter would be simple: what does the scan actually show? Have I had a second opinion? Have I activated the glutes and strengthened my lower body properly? Have I worked on alignment? Have I reduced inflammation and joint load? Have I tried low impact movement consistently? And have I considered support tools, pain relief, or even the home therapy tools? And after all of that, is my quality of life still bad enough that surgery makes sense? Because maybe surgery is the right answer, but I would rather know I'd tried all the serious options first than wonder if later I'd jump too soon. If you want the personal story behind why I started looking at frequency therapy after decades of knee pain, click the video on the screen somewhere in a moment. That video explains why something had to change for me, and why I looked at the P90 and how I started thinking differently about pain, inflammation, and home therapy. And if you want to talk through what options may suit you best, you can book a call with me for free using the appointment link below in the description. And next, watch Something's Gotta Change, and I'll see you on the inside. Be awesome. Andrew out.